Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission meeting, February 22nd, 2021, 6 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
City Attorney Joden.
Here.
Manager Harlow Schulk.
Here.
Commissioner Halliday.
Commissioner Halliday has an emergency that he said he had to attend, and we won't make this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Let me check. Oh, I just got a text. Commissioner Logan will be a few minutes late.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary during the meeting. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. And remember, we have a closed caption, and if you want to use the closed caption, please go to live transcript and click on that, and you will be able to use the closed caption. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, Minutes, regular commission minutes, January 25th were received. Comments, questions? Madam Clerk, the minutes will be admitted. Presentation, Larry Kurokawa, Director Penosa.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. We wanted to recognize a Parks Department employee who has been with the Parks Department here in Helena for 30 years, and he'll be retiring next month. So Larry Kurokawa, I believe he's on tonight. He is retiring after 30 years of public service to the City of Helena's as the City of Helena's golf course superintendent. He has brought 30 years of professionalism, commitment, and dedication to the City of Helena and receives the highest level of praise for outstanding course conditions. He has dedicated his career to improving not only the course conditions, but the facility as a whole, developing and mentoring a well-trained and successful workforce and providing high-level leadership in agronomy, soil and turf care, and complex irrigation systems. Larry has been thoughtful and resourceful and always represents the city well as a dedicated public servant and a friendly presence. Larry oversaw the renovation of the then back 9 greens in 1993, installation and implementation of a multi-million-dollar irrigation system in 2014, developed sustainable and maintainable rough areas, and relined the ponds in holes number 2, 7, 9 after original bentonite linings disintegrated. Golfers are very appreciative of the care Larry has put into the course, and there is no doubt that this place will not be the same without him. He is always willing to stop and chat with whoever at any time and will listen to any and all feedback about the course. Golfers are appreciative of his hands-on approach to maintenance, and his presence will be greatly missed. We just wanted to take a moment to recognize Larry and thank him for his 30 years of service to the city.
Thank you, Director Penoso. And I just also want to re-echo how appreciative the city is for his long years of service to the people of Helena. We want you to know, we know that you've been there, you've done that, you've seen it all, and we're so appreciative of you, Larry. And I don't know how much more. Other commissioners, do you want to say a few words before we turn it over to Larry?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
I guess I would just like to say to Mr. Kirikawa, congratulations on 30 years of service to the citizens and City of Helena. We crossed paths a number of times during my career, and I think when we were doing some ice rescue training out at their ponds in the winter, we may have left some fire equipment that he may have found over the years. So, but not a golfer myself, but I'll just tell you a little story. I had a couple of friends that came from out of state and from California, and they the husband of the couple was a golfer. He hadn't played because of the lockdown in, gosh, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, and he was able to go a couple of times while he was here, and he was just terribly impressed with the condition of the courts, as well as the treatment that he got from staff during his experience. And I guess that is just reflective of Mr. Kirikawa and dedication that he's shown. So thank you very much, Larry.
Any other commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, I would just echo both the thoughts of you and Commissioner Logan, and just want to say thank you. And what a role model of a public servant that's really gone above and beyond for 30 years. And I too am not a golfer, but I will say my best friend was Class B state champion 2 years in a row, and ours continues to be his favorite golf course, and probably one of the reasons why he's over here all the time. But really appreciate all your work, and just being such an example of what awesome public service is.
Yeah, and Mayor, this is Commissioner O'Loughlin, I would just say congratulations on your retirement and thank you for your service.
Well, Larry, we'll give you the floor. It's all yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Commissioners, for taking the time this evening to acknowledge my years of service. And I do appreciate that. It's been a good, so to speak, good gig for all these years. I do remember, thanks for all the kudos too. It brings back a lot of memories when I first stepped on that course. It was the start of the construction, and man, what a project that was. It was a complete 9 renovation, and got through that in a 2-phase period, and it was a tremendous improvement for the city. And then through the years, all the improvements that I've seen and been part of down there, through to the new building with the munis and the pro shop, you truly do have a tremendous asset down there, and you all should be really proud of that facility. And as some of the commissioners have said, it does get a lot of kudos from travelers and locals. So it says we're doing something right down there. So again, I'm proud of what we've done down there, and as well as you should be. And I guess for the thing that I appreciate most is the friendship and the value of the people that I've met along the way, and come and gone with a lot of ways. It's a great fraternal feeling, and that I will always have the connection to the city and the golf course down there. And I hope to get out there more since after the day I retire, I guess every day will be a Saturday. So hopefully I'll get to golf more, because working there, we don't get a lot of time to golf. People assume we do, but that's part of my plan, to get out there and be a golfer. So thank you again.
No, we're thanking you. Director Pinoza, anything else? When is your last day?
March 16th.
Oh, okay. You'll see me before then.
Yes. I know I see you coming and going out at doing this, so I'll grab you next time I see you.
You bet. Director,
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
any employees on want to say a few words before we move forward?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Rachel, City Manager, I wanted to say thank you to Larry for his service to the city and dedication of time. And often when you're a city employee for that many years, you do view the team as your family, and your family also views them as your family. So I hope you do feel welcome to come back and see us all. And I know when you retire, of course, you kind of get to smile as you walk through and say hello to all of us who are working. So certainly feel welcome to do so. And it's been a pleasure to get to work with you this short amount of time I've had an opportunity to do so, Larry. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Larry. Consent agenda claims, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Mayor, I recommend you entertain a motion to approve the claims for January 26th and 29th, 2021, February 1st, 5th, 8th, and 11th, 2021, in the total amount of $1,334,742.08.
Any comments, questions from the commission? Public comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I will move item A, claims.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. At this time, we'll ask for communications proposals from the commission. If seeing none, we'll move on. Report of the city attorney.
Mayor Collins, Thomas Jordan, Helena City Attorney. I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to confirm one item under the consent agenda. I need to request that you recommend a motion to approve the strategic outcomes, or to the movement of the strategic outcomes and priorities for fiscal year 2022 to the regular items, item 11D, so that we can open up the discussion around the document that was sent today, which is the feedback from Be Heard Helena that was provided via our new report out available, so that you can contemplate those pieces of engagement when actually adopting your strategic outcomes and priorities, so that we can move them towards the next steps of the budget.
Any discussion from the commission?
So sorry, just to clarify, is there should we just take it as a consent agenda item, or are you suggesting moving it down?
I'm suggesting moving, thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin. I'm suggesting moving it down so that you have an opportunity to enter into the public meeting the report that was generated, and we can reflect it in your comments. Thank you.
So I don't think we need to
I-
take a motion for that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. You're right.
Yeah, okay.
We'll just transfer it down to Delta, 11A, right?
11D or A.
Yeah, in that, okay. All right. Please continue, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make you all aware that we have welcomed to the team Renee McMahon as our new Human Resources Director, and Renee is here. And I tried to welcome all of our new directors. This completes our director and leadership team recruitments, and also want to make sure to let you know we've also hired our public information officer, who will be moving to Helena, but it's actually a return to Helena. His name is Jake Garson, and he is planned to start the week March 29th. But first, I'd like to turn it over to Renee McMahon for a welcome and a hello summary from her.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me at the first City Commission meeting. I am delighted to be here. I have spent the last 4 or 5 days getting to know people. The next few weeks I have tours with all the major facilities and area directors and leaders. Had a pleasure of meeting several of you. Thanks for dropping in. It was nice to put faces to names and see you in person. So I really appreciate you welcoming me in this role. I don't know if you know much about me. I've been in Helena for about 26 years. Most of my career before coming here was at Carroll College as the director of HR. So my husband and I were raised, my husband was born here. We raised our children here, and I am thrilled to be able to serve our community, a community that we love so much. And so I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Renee, and welcome to the City of Helena. I know you've been here for 20-something years, but still not in city government. So we welcome you to the city government.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say welcome, and also I'm excited to have another saint on our team.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
That's why they're getting angry at us.
Thanks
Okay.
so much.
Thank you. Madam Manager, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First, I wanted to circle around on a memorandum that I sent to you all via email last week, and it is specific to a loan to Artisan LLP mortgage that was entered into the city on May 9th, 2005, where the city altered terms of a loan, and that was originally made to Artisan in 1997. And after discussion with the owners of the company and their thoughts on their payment, it had been deferred all of this time since 2005 and begin payments back on April 1st of 2020. Since that time, no payments have been made. However, there have been conversations with the loan holder, and while the city has sent a late notice to the loan holder, we also had conversations with Artisan. On page 2 of my memorandum to you all, I provide summary ideas of how the company would like to address their loan. Items 2 and 4 on that list are actual 2, 4, and item 6 is another item for you to consider. Those are the ones that staff actually recommend. They're listed in a total of 7 options offered up. And as a result, I'm asking that after you've reviewed all of the information, you will make a motion and direct me and the team to work with Artisan on either payment of the loan back within specific loan term revisions as noted under 1 through 4. Item 4, either accelerate the loan payment by making a lump sum negotiation. That lump sum negotiation was an attempt to address complete payment early, but the amount of the lump sum, I could not arrive at a dollar amount that would not result in a difficulty later as to how I identify it. So we reduced the amount of the total to by approximately $50,000, which is the overhead that we anticipate it would take if we were to manage a loan for another 20 years. So that lump sum amount would be $448,780.01. And then the last is we can always continue forward as we have and move forward with the collections. As I've said, we have not received payment back to April 1st of this year, of 2020, excuse me. And the outstanding amount in that and from that late payment is $39,935. The other options offered were conversion of the loan to a grant. And after having researched, while this could happen, I believe the city would have already made a grant 20 years ago at the time they offered it up originally. There have been several reductions of this original loan since its creation, including granting of a portion of the dollars. So I do not recommend we convert it to a loan. Another option was the deferral and continuing to defer the payments. If that happens, and based on the history of this loan, I anticipate we would be back in the same place of trying to renegotiate or all the 7 ideas offered up. Another option was to write off the loan. There's the owner of Artisan believes that the city has limited legal authority to do so. Although I'm not sure the city would have entered into it, and neither would have the company if that were the case. And the last is the other option that I do not recommend and staff do not recommend is friendly foreclosure. We're not sure of the expectations or additional loans that might be burdened onto the title. And unless we have a title review, we would not recommend friendly foreclosure at this time. So, Mayor, it is requested that you entertain a motion that directs the staff to continue forward with collection on the current loan, or one of the selected options to combine several of the 7 options proposed.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Comments, questions, discussions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Dean.
I would not be opposed to the lump sum option or exploring that, but I mean, I believe it needs to be paid and sooner rather than later for the late payments. But those are just some of my thoughts. I know, I mean, if I was late on a loan, I'd be hearing from someone. So when I read through the memo, which appreciate all the detail, Manager Haller-Schulk, but that's where my head is.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
questions for the manager, please.
Go ahead.
Ms. Harlow-Schulk, am I reading number 2 right in it kind of giving you more flexibility than the other, or is that a bad assumption?
Thank you, Commissioner Logan. The flexibility is in that it allows for the term to be extended. Right now, it's a 14-year term loan with a 3% interest. The offer within each of the elements would be to take one of those 4 to the company and offer them up as an option to them. Whichever one is selected, they choose, we move forward with. So the first one is renegotiate the terms to what is currently past due, which is that $39,935 on top of the original $498,780 loan, using current term interest rates over 15, 20, or 30 years. And those current mortgage rates for 15 years are 2.19, 20 years 2.1 or 2.715 and 2.799 for 30 years. So that's option 1. And then each of the following are different variations of the loan terms as well as the interest rate. Most important distinction is the removal of the past due as part of the total amount to be negotiated in the loan terms. Either removal of it under 2.2, little I2, or continuing forward with it under 2.1 and 2.3.
Well, if we were, Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
if we were to select the second option, number 2, do we have to choose 1, 2, 3, or 4 under that, or is that up to you to negotiate with the individual?
That would be, oh, excuse me. Thank you, Commissioner Logan. That would be the ask. It would be up to you all. It would be far more, it offers more flexibility to approve the option of the city offering into a renegotiation of the loan into any one of these terms and allow me to complete that negotiation.
And one last, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And in number 4, it says a lump sum amount has not been shared by the Nicholsons. So you don't have a sense of that, that being a viable option, or do you?
Thank you, Commissioner Mayor. Commissioner, this dollar amount is better than no dollar amount, which has been offered up by the Nicholsons. And it is one that I can at least defend on as to how I got to the logic of the number. I'm not sure what other number we might be talking about. I've asked in 3 different conversations for that number. And so, as would be an option with any other organization that might give a loan, I suppose, they would offer up the settlement and whether or not to negotiate in or out that April 1, 2020, back to the April 1, 2020 past due amount is also an option. Right now, the lump sum is removed. The lump sum waives the past due and reduces it by $50,000, the amount that would be overhead for us managing it for 20 years.
Thank you, Ms. Harlow-Schalk, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You bet. Any other comments from the commission?
Mayor, I would just say I would be comfortable with 2 or 4 and delegating authority to the city manager to finalize an agreement with the owners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Madam Manager, I'm also very comfortable with 2 or 4 and providing the flexibility to your office to continue negotiation for the loan. All right, you may continue. Are you done with your report?
Nope, I am not. Thank you. The next item up is an update from our fire chief, and that is the specific item that I shared on February 3rd. As you know, I felt I would have been remiss if I did not share to you this priority brought to me by the chief, Chief Wood, and that we do have a problem that needs to be addressed within our fire service overall. And I also would like to say that there's always an intention that when we start this conversation, and like we are, that this is just the beginning of the conversation, and that we are in the motion recommending that you all contemplate sending this to a stakeholder group and to further discussion within the community. It is anticipated that this fire station is not the only solution, and instead also what other items might be on the table, including partnerships and stakeholder conversations. Additionally, the partnerships beyond our borders are being reflected in the motion being recommended to you specific to the Planning Commission, and asking for their support and work beyond our borders and specifically to emergency services. What I did not do, and the chief did not do within our information to you, was share the definition of emergency services, and I wanted to make sure that that was clear Emergency services includes fire, police, and any other water or sewer emergent issue that requires the city to address emergency issues outside of the city's borders in order to provide support to the community. The concern that was raised on February 3rd is in relationship to the city's status of conformance to the National Fire Protection Agency's response standard. The city is witnessing a significant change in not only its population, but its responsibility. We are also facing a future that includes our wildland urban interface, as well as a considerable amount of growth beyond our borders. So Chief Wood, I would like to turn this next portion over to Chief Wood to provide to you an update on our service activity. Please note that there are 3 parts to this presentation. One is the summary report on this item online. The second is the presentation that Chief is going to provide to you. And the third is a summary of more in-depth data and information on the fire department. That does not mean, though, that we have a final decision in front of you. Instead, this is a recommendation for further conversations with stakeholders, as well as further conversations with the Planning Commission. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam. Chief, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. Tonight, I'll be presenting a fire service update dated February 22nd, 2021. And I will start screen sharing here. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first slide, what does the fire department do? In 1978, the Helena Fire Department responded to 540 calls. We are now responding to 4,000 or more. In the last 10 years, calls have increased by 1,620 calls. And by the year 2025, we could see as many as 4,800 calls in a year. In 1978, we did fire suppression, fire prevention, investigation, and education, and some basic EMS. Since then, we have added a paramedic non-transport response, hazardous materials emergency management regional hazmat team response, ice rescue, confined space rescue, technical rope rescue, and a high-fit Helena interagency fire investigation team. So in 2006, a Lewis and Clark County and City of Helena Fire Protection Service review was completed by Emergency Services Consulting, ESCI, in 2006. A fire service planning committee was established on January 29th, 2007. Based on the information contained in the 2006 ESCI review, the 2007 Planning Committee recommended the following: adding 9 firefighters, 1 fire inspector, the remodel of Station 2, capital replacement program with an ongoing funding mechanism, a city commission supported response times, directing the fire chief to establish a department-wide response time with a 90% recommended attainment level, and to begin the process of adding a 3rd fire station built and staffed by around 2012, 2013. So what has happened since the 2008 recommendation? In 2018, an emergency medical services mill levy passed, paying for 6 new firefighters, a new aerial truck, soon to be purchased, and new EMS vehicles and emergency response command staff vehicles, a capital replacement program with an ongoing funding mechanism, and other miscellaneous emergency equipment replacement needs. Things that the mill levy is not able to fund are things like a new fire inspector, the remodel of Station 2, and meet department-wide response times as directed by the commission and fire chief, nor is it able to fund a staffed fire station, 3rd fire station by 2012 or 2013. So the impact of not having a 3rd station. Not having a 3rd station is causing an increase in response times, overlapping calls, delayed and unable to respond occurrences due to city and county growth. This will in turn cause a community to experience a greater property loss from fires and will delay needed medical care, resulting in worsening health outcomes, specifically when a person experiences a heart attack or stroke. Since the fire service review, the city has seen an increase from 2,935 calls in 2006 to 4,210 calls in 2019. It's seen a 30% increase in city streets, or about 54, 56 miles of streets, commercial and residential subdivision development in all directions, especially north of the railroad tracks, east and west. An increase of about 8,000 city residents, serving about 70,000 during regular business hours and weekends, and an increase of about 14,000 county residents. So a little bit about response times since 2010, and then a projected 2025, which is based on anywhere from about 20 years of data that's been collected, but I'm focusing on the last 10. The graph shows an average response times for all districts or zones. Response time to outlying city properties can be as high as 8 minutes. The 2025 average projected response times for station 1 and 2 is 6.5 to 7 minutes, with an NFPA compliance as low as 11% of the time, meeting those standards within the 90%. In 2010, 29% of our calls were overlapping calls, meaning we have more than one call going on at a time. Sometimes it's as many as 2, 3, or even 4 I've seen. In 2020, it was 37% of our calls were overlapping. And in 2025, we could predict a travel time compliance will only be about 53%. So this next video is basically what can happen in 1 minute. This video is important because it shows just what a fire can do in a minute. 1 minute of added burn time can take what would have been a rescue into a body recovery incident. This will be important to remember for the next few slides, and pay a particular attention to the end of the video is when flashover occurs, and that's when the entire room reaches ignition point and becomes fully involved in the fire. At this point, the fire will rapidly spread throughout the rest of the residence. Excuse me, I was coughing there. So as you can see in the video, every minute really does count in a fire. It makes all the difference. And in this slide, Well, first, we cannot safely make entry into a structure fire without both stations on scene unless it is for an immediate potential life rescue. The city is split into two different response areas by Montana Avenue. Station 1 covers the west side and Station 2 covers the east side. The map you're looking at here is broken up into 9 different districts we use to track response times. So we can separate each district out and see how we're responding to that area of town. Districts 1, 2, and 5 have the longest response times. In 2010, the average times for districts 1, 2, and 5 were District 1 was 6 minutes and 17 seconds. 5 was 5 minutes and 41 seconds. And 2 was 5 minutes and 7 seconds. A predicted 2025 response times is for District 1, 8 minutes and 17 seconds. 5 is 8 minutes and 4 seconds. And 2 is 7 minutes and 49 seconds. Well outside the industry standard based on NFPA 1710. So what are response times? The NFPA basically defines the turnout time for EMS as being 60 seconds, and that's the time you get the alarm till you're rolling out of the station. For fire, it's 1 minute 20 seconds for turnout time, more gear to put on. Travel time is for EMS and fire is 4 minutes or less, not less than 90% of the time. I recently asked the GIS department to create some updated travel time heat maps for stations 1 and 2 and a third station on Custer Avenue. These maps do not include turnout time. They are only showing the actual travel time. These maps don't take into account weather conditions, traffic load, emergency response, vehicle type, narrow streets, turnarounds, etc. Those things that could delay a response. So this first map, the purple is a 6 minute response area from Station 1. And you can see Station 1 is the lone dot there downtown. The pink area is a 5 minute response and the yellow is a 4 minute response. The other red dots along the railroad tracks are roads not used because of the tracks. When you add turnout time, the areas outside, you would add 1 minute to 1 minute 20 to each area. Specifically, the areas outside the purple would be an 8 minute plus response time. This often happens when calls overlap or one station takes the other's call outside their primary response area. So Station 1 has to travel over by the hospital in that area. You're looking at an 8 minute response time. Because of the railroad crossing on Benton Avenue and Joslin Street, Station 1 is forced to use longer routes such as Henderson and Montana Avenue, which makes Custer Avenue an important main thoroughfare. We now go to Station 2 map. Same color and times apply here. And you can see Station 2 over on Hannaford Street. Based on the heat map, you can see how response times increase based on where you are responding from. So areas in Stations 1's district that used to be pink or purple are now the white, which is going to be an 8 minute response time. Because of the railroad crossing on Montana Avenue and National Avenue and Robert Street, Station 2 is forced to use longer routes, such as taking I-15 north, getting onto Cedar Street, and then heading back south to calls just below the train tracks. So now you'll see the importance of a third station somewhere down on Custer Avenue in the area of the water treatment and Kelleher Street area. The third station off Custer does several things to improve service. It would reduce districts 1 and 5's response times from a projected 8 minutes by as much as 2 to 4 minutes, that it would reduce their response time, improving overall fire and EMS service north of the railroad tracks to districts 1, 2, 4, 5, and 9. Basically, everything south of the railroad tracks would see a significant improvement in service being provided. This would reduce overlapping calls, delayed and unable to respond occurrences, creating better overlapping coverage, more efficient training, better public outreach and educational opportunities for the overall community with a more accessible and functional building design. Current Station 1 is very difficult to get into, and parking is very challenging, and it's a difficult station for the public to access easily. And again, quick access to and use of Custer Avenue is vital to the Helena Fire Department's response to all areas of the city, specifically though in that area where Station 3 would serve. So rural fire and mutual aid. The Helena Fire Department participates in the Lewis and Clark County Rural Fire Council mutual aid agreements. We have an outstanding relationship with our partners in rural fire, and we help each other out. Although our mutual aid agreements are crucial, or a crucial part of the services we provide, unfortunately, they don't address the issue of increased response times or provide the needed resources for initial fire attack and rescue operations. So the recommendations: begin the process of building a third fire station on the north end of the city. The next steps should include the following: would be integrate the process into the City of Helena strategic plan, form a stakeholder task force to review where the Helena Fire Department currently is in fulfilling the fire service reviews recommendations, including impacts of the wildland interface, and identify funding options, which could include fees, mill levy obligation debt, grants, and partnerships. You can see the list of potential partners. I won't read them to you. They are many of the same partnerships we had during the initial fire service reviews. And then finally, request the Joint City-County Planning Committee address how emergency services outside of city borders will be accommodated in the future, knowing that many county households may seek or be required to seek incorporation in the city. That is the end of my presentation. I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, you need that drink of water. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mayor, I just have one quick question for the chief.
Go ahead, Commissioner O'Loughlin.
As you've looked, or I would just be curious if you've looked at other municipalities that are our size and how they might compare in their, their total force, and then how many stations they have. If you've done any sort of comparisons with similarly sized municipalities.
I have. I don't have, or excuse me, Mayor, Commissioner O'Loughlin. I have just in general. I haven't I guess, dove into the actual statistics. But again, I would just, I guess, mention that in 2006, the city hired a company to do a fire service review and found that we needed a third station by 2012 and 13. Things have only increased, call volume, response times. But I can certainly do that and get more detailed information for you if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
My first question is, I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about what some of the other associated costs would be with a third fire station beyond just building it.
Yes. Mayor, Commissioner Dean. Yes, I can. With a third fire station, there would be a need for increased staff to staff that fire station. And there would be, you know, associated, I guess, equipment. There's different ways we could manage what we have now, but there could potentially be a need there for added fire trucks or rescue response type vehicles.
Okay, that's helpful. And then, Mr. Mayor, if I might have one more question. And I know the slide kind of outlining what was included for the 2018 levy was helpful. And I'm just curious if you can recall, you know, maybe what some of that discussion was as to why a third station wasn't included in that. And I'm grateful that those reports were included in the packet because that was really helpful to read through those. But I know that it's, you know, all this has been saying this is what we're going to need, you know, even a few years ago. So I'm wondering if you can talk maybe about why this wasn't included in the last levy.
Mayor, Commissioner Dean, that's a very good question. I don't have an answer for that, honestly. I wasn't involved at the beginning of that process. It had already begun. I'm trying to recall back where I was at. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately.
Well, I could add, Mayor, you know, it's interesting because while there was some sort of general conversations 3 years ago about a station, and I know that that has been a topic for some time, it really was the staffing that was the priority at that point. You know, making sure that we had a certain number of staff on for each shift. And that was really what the fire department and those involved, you know, came to the commission to say, you know, would you consider this? That and the capital component, right? So providing some sort of long-term investment in capital needs within the fire department. But as I recall, and Mayor, maybe you have a different perspective, I don't know that a fire station was necessarily on the table as a proposal from the city staff.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't on the table at the time. We're looking at staffing and the safer grant.
I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mayor, a few questions, if I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
So Chief, would a lot of the presentation tonight is based on response times? Can you think it might be helpful to describe how those times are captured to the commission and the public listening?
Yes, Mayor, Commissioner Logan, good question. So the overall response times, the 5 minutes for EMS and the 5 minutes and 20 seconds for fire response. So the call comes into dispatch, and we don't track those times. We just track the times from when dispatch sets off our alarm that there is a call. So the time it takes for us to receive the call or respond to the call and go en route is our turnout time. And that's the time that it takes for you to get ready, get in your vehicle, and roll out the door. Then you have your travel time, which is between your en route and your on scene time, which is an additional 4 minutes per NFPA 1710 standard. So when you combine all those, that's your overall response time. We have the only piece of that we have any control over is our turnout time. So the time that alarm comes into the station and we get ready and head out the door. That's what we internally have control over.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Mayor, a follow-up, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. So relative to that turnout time, you graphically demonstrated the travel time piece of it for each station, but how is the department performing relative to the turnout time standard? Do you have a sense of whether that is being met or not?
Mayor, Commissioner Logan, I do. There's a few things that have an impact on that. Actually, I mean, there's within Station 1, we have 3 levels that we're operating in. So you could have firefighters on any one of those levels. Preferably, you have a single level fire station like our Station 2. So there's things like that that can affect that turnout time. What other activities you're involved in can delay you're getting on the radio. If in the middle of training, there might be a delay there where we get on the radio and receive that call and go en route. So there's a lot of things that can impact those numbers. And what I found is our numbers do look a little bit high. There are some inconsistencies with dispatch, and I did pull a small sample, and it's not terrible. It was a small sample, so I don't know just how accurate it would be or is if you were to pull more calls. But we have worked on our response, and occasionally we review that with the shifts. And just in my observing the firefighters responding to calls, I'm here every day, Monday through Friday. I'm not seeing where we're lagging in our response, but when you look at the actual recorded numbers, it does appear that we should be a little bit quicker than what we are, but I haven't been able to quite pin that down. I will say that the delays in the big picture really are I would consider insignificant when you look at the overall response travel times that are increasing and growing every year, and the overlapping calls and the other things that impact that. So hopefully that answered your question, Commissioner.
Thank you. Just one more request, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please, go ahead.
I think it might be helpful for the commission to have a better sense of, maybe some better data on that particular piece of the response time. As well, I think that something that might also be helpful is similar to the maps you use for travel time. I think I think the emergency reporting software, for example, can create a heat map for the distribution of calls. That may also be helpful as well. So thanks for your time.
Mayor, Commissioner Logan, I do have those numbers. I did look at those, and I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I can get that information for you, certainly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chief. Hey, just one question. How often do you have the overlapping calls?
It's, well, 37% of the time, and I believe in 2020, that was about 1,000 calls, 1,004 calls, I believe, is what we had that were overlapping.
Wow.
So that's a quarter or more of our calls were overlapping.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if when you all send out that additional data that Commissioner Logan just asked about, could we also get a copy of the presentation?
Oh, we do have it, don't we have it?
I don't think we have this presentation. The maps were the maps were helpful.
Sure. Chief, did
And
you hear?
if I'm
Commissioner
not seeing it,
Yeah.
just let me know. But thanks.
It should be there.
Okay.
I guess maybe I have a question, probably for the city manager, just in having this on our agenda tonight. And then it seems like there's another ask for us to add. So to the city manager, what do you envision as a timeline for this? Like, are we talking about a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year sort of plan? And then what would you want to accomplish in the next year on this?
Thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin. I just want to flag quickly, my camera is not working appropriately. So if it looks like I'm a disco with it coming on and off, I apologize, and I'll keep talking through. But the timeline is, in this initial phase, I anticipate it to be with stakeholders and the Planning Commission, since they're both two separate conversations. Those conversations are about a year, I suspect. What I want to do is provide and continue to provide you all with updates all along the way through our chief would, as to how the stakeholder engagement is going, the work they're doing, and how the information they're being provided and providing to the chief are actually available all along the way to you all. Also, my hope is that our new Bang the Table, Be Heard Helena, and sorry, I'm going in and out. I hope that we'll be able to use that platform as well to provide not only what information was shared tonight, but also what other information might come up during those stakeholder engagements or during the Planning Commission. So this, again, it's, yes, I believe it's a 1 year conversation with stakeholders, with a further work plan planned to come to you in the next several admin meetings, so that you have an idea of where we're planning to go. Wanted to first give you context around it, because I think for me, I know when I was made aware of the response time, I needed more information. And I also thought it was important that it be timely for you all to be along this path with me as well, given that I think we have to be moving quicker than just based on the delays that have happened over time. So with that, so as far as the funding piece, Commissioner O'Loughlin, I do anticipate that we're going to have a conversation pretty early on who might be interested in partnerships and what kind of partnerships we're talking about by way of funding, because large capital requests that are in grant programs usually take about a year anyway, as well. If in fact we do move forward with any improvements. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Mayor, yes, that is very helpful. Thank you. So what I'm hearing, though, is that this is not likely included in our next fiscal year budget, that we're, from a funding perspective, looking out likely into the next fiscal year.
Correct. We will be doing what we were going to be asking for, is more funding to do study work along with the analysis with our stakeholder team. So you'll see there will be asks in the budget around a staff, which were shared tonight by Chief Wood's specific staff. Those were separate and not including this conversation. And but that further study to augment what we had and have had on our records, we really do need to update that in some way and provide more solid information.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So one thing I'm just thinking about moving forward, I think it would be helpful when we start these conversations. I mean, I think one, it's like an education piece, right? So that everyone in the community knows from the get-go, this is what we're looking at and this is why. And these are the steps that we're taking to gather the information we need. And part of that too, I think, is probably looking at not just, you know, what are the actions we need to be taking in the next, let's say 3 years, like a fire station, but you know, 8, 10 years and be able to look in phases, because I think that, you know, had we been talking about maybe phases 10 years ago of, you know, first there's going to be a levy to address staffing, and then we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about a fire station. I think that maybe that sets a conversation up so that everybody in the community knows what's happening. And I think the other part of that too is that, you know, I kind of had to laugh when I was reading through some of the studies, and I'm glad that we're going to invest in gathering more data and have a better understanding of where we are, because these two, and everyone knows I'm, you know, the youngest, but these studies were done when I was in high school, and I'm turning 30 this year. So it's one of, you know, I just had to laugh when I was reading it, because I know 2006 and 2008 don't seem that long ago, but it's a significant chunk of time that, you know, the community's changed in that amount of time. And I think that we need to be thinking about what does this look like, you know, 12 and 15 years from 2021 too.
Bet only you will be able to compare it like that. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? Well, Chief, we appreciate the update, and we're looking forward to continue our relationship.
Thank you.
Madam Manager, are you done?
I am, Mayor. I'm hoping that you all will entertain a motion that supports our chief moving forward with engaging stakeholders and continuing the conversation over to the Planning Commission so that we can address emergency issues outside of our borders as well.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on that, or we can move straight to the motion? I'll entertain.
I'm sorry. When you say outside of our borders, what do you mean by that?
Into the, thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin and Mayor, the outside into the conversation around emergency services, and those emergency services brought on when we as an organization have to go outside of the City of Helena land jurisdiction. So oftentimes the city is required to, when there's annexation or issues related to water and sewer service, those are emergent issues. So that's the conversation with the planning committee that we would like to have, the joint planning committee, on how to address those emergent issues beyond our Helena jurisdictional lines and into those areas of the county where in fact we are providing emergent services and anticipating what that might look like into the future.
Thanks. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I got the partnership part. I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Mayor, my inclination is that we hold off on making motions until we actually get to the item. We just moved. This is a city manager report item, not an action item. So if we want to amend the item that we just moved into regular items to reflect this as an additional priority, that might be the best time to do it when we can talk more holistically about the strategic plan.
I don't see a problem with going ahead with doing this. So unless, Mr. Jordan, is there a problem with moving forward?
Moving forward, no, Mayor.
Commissioner, do you see a problem with that? Commissioner O'Loughlin, that is? Does
Well, Mayor, I'll just say I'd like to talk about the strategic plan as a whole and where we're headed with that. I mean, I have some additional questions about other items that maybe need to be added. And so if the ask is to add this to our strategic plan, I think it might be helpful for us to be on the topic of the strategic plan, which we had on our consent agenda and we just moved it down.
yeah, okay. Any other comments or
Mr. Mayor?
concerns? Go ahead, Commissioner.
The only thing I'm uncomfortable with, I guess, at this point is if, I mean, were we to make a motion to, as suggested by the manager, I think it will, you know, certainly come as a surprise to partners, say whether it's county officials, neighboring response agencies, or even residents out in that area. So I'm open to the idea of, I guess, the exploration, but I don't know. It just feels a little awkward to me.
I'm a little confused by this because I thought this was just going to be, we're allowing them to start talking to stakeholders. So I don't know where this.
And if that's, Mr. Mayor, if that's the case, I'm okay.
Am I right, Madam Manager?
Yes, that is correct, Mayor. The intention is to have the conversations with the stakeholders to begin again to craft a work plan to start a conversation that actually results in movement forward with fire service and improvements that may be necessary. We don't have any information. In the past, we had the study completed without the stakeholders engaged, and then the study was brought forward. This one is intended to bring the stakeholders from the beginning through.
Right. So it's just the beginning stage, just to start that discussion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I might ask, is consensus enough? I mean, if at this point in the agenda,
yes,
is consensus enough to move forward with that? And if so, I'm fine.
You
I'd
bet.
be comfortable with that.
Okay.
I would be comfortable with that too.
Thank you. Madam Manager, move forward. Are you done?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mayor. That is the end of my portion of the agenda. Thank you.
Your report. Okay. Where am I? Okay. We will now have communications from Helena Citizens Council. Helena Citizen Council Representative Dennis Barber.
Yes,
Denise,
hello.
Denise Barber, sorry.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor and members of the commission. So I am a member of the Helena Citizens Council, and I'll be brief in this report out. The first thing I'll say is that the HCC unanimously endorsed the resolution that is on the agenda later on in the meeting. It's the waste reduction resolution. So they are in full support of that resolution, or the adoption of the resolution by the commission. HCC has also created a budget committee that is actively working to ensure that members are fully informed of the development of the fiscal year 22 city budget, and we will be providing input to the city as we've done in previous years. So we're fully engaged on that already. And HCC is also actively working on community outreach. We don't really have currently a way for us to reach out to people in our districts. We don't have a budget, you know, we don't have contact information. I think we have a voting list, but it's phone numbers and addresses. And again, without any kind of a budget, we don't have any way of reaching folks. So we have been doing some kind of grassroots door knocking, and leaving information at the doors of our residents, and doing Survey Monkey. So we're working slowly to improve our ability to communicate with the public. And finally, we have our monthly meeting is next Wednesday. So if anybody's interested in knowing what we're going to be going over, our agenda will be on our website. So that's it.
Thanks, Ms. Barber. Do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Barber? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You bet. Regular items. A, consider a resolution establishing a policy that all department director level employees should be residents of the City of Helena while employed by the City of Helena. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is in response to a request that you had made to me and to the team in response to concern around, in particular, the impact of the pandemic onto our ability to find housing within our community and those leadership positions that have come on, and the ability of those families really to move to Helena. And I don't think anybody would be surprised to see that there is a problem with finding housing and homes in Helena. The price of housing is high, and for our new directors, there is significant difficulty in finding housing. But that isn't the only portion of this problem that exists, and that those who are within the current ranks of our leadership team and the director's role are unable to move out of the city when their homes and their family grows. So what we have in the pandemic that made it even far more difficult was confined spaces with larger families who could not move. And oftentimes they couldn't find a location within the city. When this resolution was originally adopted, there was a connection between the importance of having staff within the community, especially in leadership positions, that are our residents. And I definitely agree that there is a need for the city to have access to these employees and these leaders in emergencies. And my focus, as I've had conversations with each of you, has been on making sure that the directors can reach where they need to be, which is in city limits in 30 minutes should there be an emergency. The positions that have come on, many of them have reached the caveats, and the majority of the caveats within the resolution adopted in 2018 apply to our directors. Now, the question is whether or not the service delivery has changed. So the purpose of any work that we do is to ensure good quality service to our citizens at the best price possible. And that's really where I start with our work. And I don't know that there's a distinction between whether or not a director living in the city actually improves the service delivered. Now, they do feel the service delivered, but they're also employees in these roles are oftentimes in these buildings more than they're at their homes, and actually a part of receiving services within the community. Last, as you heard and have listened to me over several meetings say, the services that we provide in Helena are services that are provided to the Valley and beyond. That Helena is the destination for most service delivered, including medical, as well as primary living. So I would suggest to you and recommend, I appreciate that you brought this to the commission's attention and requested, Mayor, that I provide to you an analysis of what I believe is a very clear statement by the commission that it's important that our directors live in this community. And I know that this community isn't just the current jurisdictional boundaries, it is beyond those boundaries, and as an option should be made available to our directors who are having difficulty finding locations because of the pandemic. There's fewer options as well. Those that are currently within our director group whose families have grown beyond the space they have in their homes to those outside our jurisdictional boundaries. So what I'm recommending to you, Mayor, is that you entertain the repeal of Resolution 20500 and adopt the resolution suggested tonight, which replaces the word shall as it appears twice in the resolution with should, so that we continue to reflect on the request of this commission that our leadership live within the community, and yet offer up the opportunity for flexibility for those who are new to the community from outside the city, outside the state, really is and then those who are outside the county, excuse me, and those who are either in the community and cannot find a space. That's a summary for you.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
question please for either the city manager or the city attorney. Do we need to repeal, or can we amend the existing resolution?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Logan, Thomas Joden, Helena City Attorney. The way we've drafted the resolution is for a repeal because of the various sections in Resolution 20500 to 20500 that have I will call them the current exceptions for employees that are already city employees that are promoted, or folks who already live in Lewis and Clark County are accepted from the requirement to be residents. Since this new proposed resolution would eliminate the requirement, the exceptions were no longer needed.
Thank you. I probably, Mr. Mayor, I'll have a comment later, but interested to hear what other commissioners have to say. Thanks.
You bet. Comments from other commissioners?
Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Please, go ahead, Commissioner.
One, well, I guess this is just a request. The current resolution that we are repealing is not in our packet, which makes it awfully difficult for us to see. And I would echo Commissioner Logan's. I mean, it would be preferable if you all proposed amendments to our existing so that we could actually see and compare, even if we're merely striking out, just so we can see. So that would be my first request, is could you please provide that to us again? I have two questions. One, we did a fair amount of research on this proposal when we first approached this discussion. I seem to recall that we got a kind of a side-by-side comparison of how other municipalities in Montana do this. And I'm just wondering, perhaps the city attorney knows offhand how, Bozeman or some of the other municipalities, if they have similar requirements.
Mayor Collins, Commissioner O'Loughlin, I don't know the answer to that question.
And, and just to add a little bit to this, when we did this, I remember when we discussed this, and I was fully on board, but none of us anticipated the hardship of COVID. COVID has landed this and made things more difficult. We all know that. That's why I suggested this, because I was in favor of the what we did before in 2018, but we didn't anticipate COVID, and COVID has played a major role in this.
So, well, and perhaps maybe the city manager has an answer to my first question, and then I do have a second question.
Go ahead, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin and Mayor. Yes, only the city of Missoula requires its directors live within the city limits. Bozeman, Billings, Great Falls, Butte, Silverbow, Kalispell do not require the directors live within the corresponding city municipality. Now, Butte, Silverbow does have a county residency requirement, which can be waived. So those are all, and if you go back and read the original resolution, that's actually what's said there as well. It's worded interestingly, but that's the summation, which is that the municipalities do not require this of their directors, and the only one that does is Missoula.
Okay, and then could you get data on what the average salary of the directors are, and then the area median income or wage for the city of Helena? I think that would be a helpful comparison.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin. Yes, and definitely we can provide that. I will tell you that the data related to demographics on the American Community Survey, which we would utilize in response to that. Average median income for those in the community would be from 2019. So it would be lagging data, and it would not include, so we would have to suggest some sort of a margin of error distinction between the two, just to make sure you are aware of that. Yes, I can provide that information.
Are you done, Commissioner O'Loughlin?
Those are my questions. I also have some comments, but those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
just a quick one. So I know that the recommendation here is changing it to should be residents. And I wonder if you can maybe just talk about Manager Hollishalk, what that conversation will look like, say with new hires that are directors, about making the effort to live in town based on that should rather than must.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. I don't know of a single leader who does not want to live in this community. So right out the chute, anyone who wants to be a part of the leadership team and wants to work for the City of Helena wants to live in the City of Helena. And I have heard that resoundingly from those who have tried to move to this community from outside. So that's the beginning of the conversation, which is our commission feels strongly that its leadership team needs to live within the city. And we also understand that the diversity in our housing has gotten even further down into the ability of us being unable to find homes. The second part of this is that it's not just the director, it's their family. So what the family unit impact is during a pandemic is exacerbated when the space is limited and there's very few options made available to them. So I would say there is a connection between what happens to a family, and not many employers would say they spend that focus on the impact of the family. And in this situation, during this pandemic, it has had a large impact for those who have been.
And quite frankly, after speaking with some of the employees, they were sincere. They have made active efforts in trying to find placing in the Helena community, but those active efforts were to no avail. So,
Mayor?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Sorry, Commissioner Dean, did you have any other?
No, I was just going to say the house next door to me just went up for sale this last week. And in the first 24 hours, I counted 15 people going through it. And it's a Carol rental. And so I totally am seeing, I mean, all of us are seeing it, everyone's talking about it, but yes, it is wild right now.
Thank you,
Sorry about that. So, Mr. Mayor, one last question.
Please go ahead.
For the manager, any other City of Helena employees have a residency requirement?
No.
Thank you.
No, we do not. Thank you.
Maybe one
Okay.
question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So prior to our passing the resolution that you're proposing that we repeal, I seem to recall that we had at least some director level positions were required to live in the City of Helena. Do you recall what the requirement was prior to that resolution?
Who you asking?
So either the city manager or the city attorney.
So thank you, Commissioner O'Loughlin. The requirement that the city manager live within the city is a contract requirement. It is not a personnel policy rule. This is a personnel policy. The city manager manages the personnel piece of our operations, and typically the city manager establishes those policies. So this one is beyond that and into the operations side. The contract you all have with me is specific to the residency requirement. I apologize, my camera is, yes, my friend tonight apparently.
Okay, so I seem to recall that there were other positions, and Thomas, I don't know if you know if prior to that passing that resolution, if there were other positions that were also subject to the residency requirement.
Besides the director level? I
No,
thought-
within the directors, I seem to recall that perhaps maybe the city attorney, but I don't remember.
I think we
if
just
that was
grandfathered those
one.
people. I don't think there were any other positions. Mr. Jordan, do you have any answer for that?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Lachlan, I remember spending a fair bit of time researching that between the judge, the city attorney, and as to the city attorney, I was actually kind of shocked because my understanding was that the position had to live in city limits, but we could not find that authority. So other than the manager, prior to resolution 20500, there were no positions that were legally required to live in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I might add my own institutional knowledge on that. I as you know, I worked for the city for, started 25 years ago. I think the fire department was the last bastion of residency requirement, or actually it wasn't residency requirements, it was a mileage. We had to live within 10 miles, and at one contract bargaining that went away. But in terms of other directors or any employee group, it doesn't ring a bell to me.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And then since we don't have the last resolution in front of us, could you, Thomas, walk through what it is we're essentially striking? I mean, I understand we're changing shall to should, which I don't know legally, like what exactly that might mean, but what are the exceptions that were included in the resolution that we passed that we would now be striking?
Does that screen share work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So scan up here. So section 1 would say, obviously change are required to reside to should reside continuously within the city. Section 2 would be the same, defining residents, defining the department level, director level employees. And then section 3, which gives an employee 1 year to comply, i.e. move into the city. And section 5 and 6 would be deleted. Section 5 is the exceptions that I mentioned before for somebody that lives in Lewis and Clark County already and has highly desirable qualifications, and then B is currently a city employee and is being promoted. We didn't, the commission didn't want to require them to move from wherever they currently lived into the city. And then section 6, obviously, if it's not a requirement to live in the city, if it's just a preference, then the language that any individual employed as of the effective date is not affected by that. I'm losing track if we kept that. And then section 7 is the municipal court judge is not subject to that because that position is covered by state law and has the same qualifications as the county justice of the peace.
Oh, you got to read that if you want us to read it.
That's very helpful. I just wonder, I mean, would it be better to go back to that resolution and sort of see what potentially needs to be tweaked? I mean, we provided some exceptions and authority to the city manager to consider, circumstances that would necessitate an exception. I wonder if it's possible to consider adjustments to that, to potentially add another exception, if that's what I'm hearing from you. I mean, there already is an exception for someone who is already a resident of Lewis and Clark County. That is, highly exceptional. It sounds like what you're looking for is some ability to consider applicants that are residing outside of Lewis and Clark County. I just wonder if that's perhaps a way to look at it that still, gives you kind of some direction and intention of the commission to say this is an important aspect of the recruitment process, but still leave some flexibility to the city manager.
Thank you, Commissioner Laughlin. Sure. Yes, we can bring it back and strike through and add in additional items. The issue that we run into are those who are directors currently who cannot find housing within the community because their family has grown. And that's the caveat on the first, and then the latter, to your point around Lewis and Clark and living within the county, those are people moving into the community. Now, I will say, oftentimes, and we'll also be talking about pay, as you had identified, oftentimes the difference between the cost to move into the community means taking a different step into what may not be available. There are very limited, if you have a large family, it's very limited stock for that. So it only underscores the work you all are doing in trying to improve the situation. But in this case, we have a situation where we have not enough flexibility built into the current.
So thank you, Madam Manager. Commissioner O'Loughlin, I'm a little confused. So what is your ask?
So I will just say, I think that I have no objections to revisiting this policy and seeing, is it working? I guess what I'm a little concerned about is wholesale repealing it and providing very little direction to the city manager. If there are particular exceptions that we might want to build into the current policy, I would be comfortable with that. I think it's more of, we're being asked to repeal a resolution that's not in our packet, that we spent a fair amount of time discussing and comparing, looking at, what exceptions other municipalities had. So that would be my preference. I think if this body wants to move forward with this, there are three more of you here today. I would just say my preference would be to table this and ask the city manager to bring forward proposed changes to the existing resolution.
Thank you. Commissioner Logan.
Mr. Mayor, I really do appreciate Commissioner O'Loughlin's concern. But I would be prepared to make a motion tonight, if nothing else, to sort of move the discussion along.
Commissioner Dane.
Just a question and then maybe a comment. I'm wondering, and this is maybe for Mr. Joden, is there a motion? I appreciate Commissioner O'Loughlin's concerns. Is there a motion that we could make tonight to meet our needs as they are right now? Because we have a situation where, well, just to be frank, we're not following our policy and we need to fix that or fix the policy. And we don't want to lose, exceptionally qualified people that we've needed to have in positions that, have sat empty for too long. So I guess my first question is there an alternative motion so that we can address this, tonight and then figure out, do we need to come back to the policy and write in these other exceptions? Or, would there even be interest in adopting this motion tonight and then putting, amending it to review the policy in, 18 months or 2 years?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean.
I was just about to entertain some public comments, but go ahead and then I'll go ahead with that.
Okay, sorry, Mayor.
No.
Commissioner Dean, yeah, other options or motions are available. I can certainly help guide the commission but I don't know in terms of the direction, how to comment any further.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I might as well, when you're ready.
What's that?
When you're ready, I might also have an option for you all on the resolution.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain some public comments. Do we have anybody from the public wishes to address this issue? Madam Clerk, do you have any raised hands?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no raised hands and I've received no written public comment on this topic.
Madam Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Madam City Clerk, can you please put back onto the screen, or City Attorney Jordan, the original resolution 2500, please? Thank you. Can you do a word search for the word shall, please, Thomas?
No shalls.
Okay, is this the original?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are required to reside. Thank you. So in opportunity to address this should in the shalls idea, it's the required then. So the alternative resolution is modify resolution 2500 to strike are required to reside continuously to should reside continuously within the city. And then the second requirement. Section 3. Should maintain continuous residency. So the word required is replaced with should. So it does offer the flexibility, yet maintains all of the caveats and key portions of the original resolution.
Is that accurate, Mr. Jordan?
Yes, Mayor.
So I appreciate that. I'm not sure that gets quite to what I'm suggesting. But I wonder, I mean, we essentially have a policy, but we allow the city manager to waive the requirement in certain circumstances. So I just wonder if one way to go about it is, rather than change that language that directors are required to live in the city, that we start it with unless waived by the city manager. That way it is a proactive, action that the city manager is taking to say, this is a circumstance in which it is reasonable to waive this requirement. I do worry. I mean, I go back to Commissioner Dean's question about what does the process look like moving forward without some sort of established standard of residency in the city. And I don't know if that makes sense, or Thomas, if you have comments on that potential change.
I was just about to send it over to Mr. Jordan. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm losing track. Of course, I always prefer we have amendments in writing so that everybody can see what we're all looking at. My biggest concern is that we don't have two resolutions that are potentially inconsistent with each other.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I want to throw this out there. I mean, I wonder if it is worth adopt the recommended resolution tonight and include and this is not written down, but it would be, I think, simple, include a review of the policy within 12 months.
It's not a bad idea.
I don't know if Manager Carlos Schalker and Mr. Doden have any thoughts on that, but that addresses our immediate concern while also giving us some time to, figure out if, is a waiver the way to go or not.
Or, I think Commissioner O'Loughlin made a point where we put it back into the city manager's court by, allowing her to waive under certain circumstances. I don't see anything wrong with that. Is that something we can do, Thomas, Mr. Jordan?
Sure. Mayor, yes.
So what do you all think about that? Putting it in the city manager's court and, under certain circumstances, she can waive that requirement by including that in the resolution.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
just to answer that question for you, I would be comfortable tonight with repealing Resolution 2500 and accepting the resolution that's in our packet. I'm comfortable tonight doing that, but that's just me.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Mayor, I'll make a motion to table this for 2 weeks until our next city commission meeting, so that the city manager can bring forward amendments to resolution 20500.
Okay, let's hear the motion.
So I'll move to table the resolution in front of us for the city manager to bring it forward at our next city commission meeting.
Do we have a second? We don't. So I guess we'll move forward then.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, do we have a?
I will make a motion, and I will just preface this motion by my concern is that we've been out of policy now. For a little while since we have, everyone on board now, and I think that getting that resolved quickly is of the utmost importance, which is why you brought it, the concern with the manager. So I, want to be respectful of that, because that obviously is something that we need to address immediately from what I've heard in this presentation and then in the meetings previously. So I am comfortable with making a motion to repeal policy 20500 and accepting the resolution establishing a policy that all department director level employees should be residents of the city of Helena. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
Of
far.
the city of Helena, while employed, yes, should be of the city of Helena while employed by the city of Helena. And I would also add to that motion a 12-month review, or a review of the policy within 12 months.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Nay.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-1.
Okay, consider a budget adjustment to transfer appropriation authority for the contingency account in the general fund to the facility fund 212. Director Danielson.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. We have the presentation in front of you. I have Christopher Curry, our budget analyst, that's going to present this amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Chris Cooley with the city's finance office. Tonight we have for your consideration a budget adjustment to transfer appropriation authority from our contingency account in the general fund to the facilities fund. If you remember back to October 13th, the commission instructed staff to identify a place within the budget to cover the cost of repairs needed at the Grand Street Theater. At the time, the Grand Street does have a rental agreement with the city, but it's for a relatively insignificant amount and does not provide for any repairs. At the time, the estimate of that project was about $25,000. And after completing some of the work and receiving firm estimates on the rest of the work, the total estimate for that project is going to be about $25,575. And so back then, the commission did instruct us to identify a place to where we could cover those funds. We identified it as to come from the contingency account within the general fund. That would be the most viable spot to reallocate the funding without really affecting anyone else's immediate operating budget. In Section 5, Parts A and B of Resolution 20609, which is the budget resolution, do grant the city manager the authority to reallocate that budget either within the general fund or to other city funds, so long as the city manager advises the commission and the public of the intent to do so at a commission meeting or a public work session. And so staff would consider this our notice of intent. We would request to hear any objections to this adjustment, either from the commission or the public. The advantage here being that facilities funds, again, without having a reserve for this specific property, would be able to cover the cost of these repairs without having to essentially dip into their reserve that comes from other areas. The disadvantage is this is a large portion of the contingency account. The budget for that account this year was $60,000. So this $25,000 would leave that about $35,000 for the rest of fiscal year 21. There have been some conversations at this point as to what to use the rest of that remaining balance would be on. One of the projects was to cover the general fund portion of the M-Files project. And then I think there was some conversation about covering possibly the YMCA childcare for the employees with the contingency fund. So there have been some conversations, but at this point, none of that $60,000 has been allocated otherwise. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley and Ms. Danielson. Comments or questions from the commission? Any comments from the public? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I have no raised hands and no written public comment.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion, eh?
Mayor, I don't believe there's any necessary action. Actually, it was just more of a feedback and or objections to using those funds. There's not a resolution or anything like that on this item.
Roger that.
I'm good with that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Okay, Ms. Danielson, Mr. Cooley, move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, consider a resolution establishing solid waste reduction goal and method to achieve those goals for the City of Helena. Sustainability Coordinator, Mr. Judge, and Mr. Leland, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Patrick Judge, City of Helena Sustainability Coordinator. And as you recall from the administrative meeting earlier this month, the proposed resolution you're considering tonight comes at the request of the Citizen Conservation Board. The CCB unanimously endorsed the measure on January 14th. And since that time, I believe the Helena Citizens Council has also endorsed the measure. For more than a year, the CCB, particularly the Waste and Recycling Committee, has worked diligently to develop this measure with weekly committee meetings for much of that time, tours of the Helena Recycling Facility, the transfer station, the landfill, numerous meetings with Public Works solid waste staff, as well as meeting with county officials, Scratch Gravel District Board, 4 different public forums on the topic. And these goals and strategies for achieving the goals were developed in consultation with both myself and with the Public Works Department solid waste staff. And so just very quickly, the overall objective is to set a diversion goal of 50% by the year 2040, with an interim goal of 35% by the year 2030. And that was also a recommendation in the 2009 Climate Action Plan, actually to meet the 35% by this year, or rather by 2020. The quick and easy estimate of kind of where we're at, these figures are very difficult to track down, but just looking at transfer station diversion, we're approximately 20% by my calculations. And again, that's just a first approximation, but with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to turn it over to Ann Brodsky, who's co-chair of the CCB's Waste and Recycling Committee. And again, we'll aim for 5 minutes. And then I believe there's other members from the public hoping to testify to this measure this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. You have the floor, Ms. Brodsky.
Thank you, Mayor Collins, members of the commission. My name is Ann Brodsky. As Patrick said, I am a member of the Citizen Conservation Board. I co-chair the Waste Committee of the CCB, along with Denise Roth-Barber, who's also present at this meeting on Zoom. Just briefly, as I mentioned to you at your administrative meeting, waste management is an area within the subject of conservation, which is the title of our board, that is really within the purview of local governments. And so we are excited to bring this resolution to you. As Patrick said, the resolution itself has 5 components. One is it directs the city manager to prepare a strategic plan for waste reduction during the next fiscal year. We asked you in a cover letter that would be contracted out. We've asked that you appropriate $60,000 in your next budget cycle for the conduct of a strategic plan, which we envision would include cost-benefit analyses of different ways of achieving waste reduction in Helena at the goals that Patrick said, using the really universal principles that the city has also adopted within its growth policy, of the most preferable being refuse and reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, and finally landfill. So the heart of the resolution is to direct the city manager to have a strategic plan prepared, which would outline alternative measures for the city to look at in a year from now, as it's going into the next budget cycle to actually get into implementing. The goals that we have here are not intended to be final goals for the city. We also ask the city to see how it's doing on a 5-year incremental basis. We ask that the strategic plan include a waste audit, a baseline analysis of what's going into the landfill now, so that it can better drive actions to take to reduce what's going into the landfill. So for example, what percentage of the solid waste is food waste? What percentage might be furniture that can be perhaps directed to other places? And finally, the 5th section of the resolution would, if passed, would direct the city manager to develop budgeting recommendations as we change the waste management approach that the city currently uses, which is currently dependent on more waste going into the landfill. So if this resolution is adopted, the goal would be to have less waste being directed to the landfill as the least conservation-minded approach to dealing with waste management, and that will likely result in and require some looking at ways to accomplish these things on a budgetary basis. And I'm free for questions. I'm trying to keep it short for you.
Thank you, Ms. Brodsky. Do we have comments or questions for Ms. Brodsky? We'll move on to Mr. Leland. Mr. Judge, did you say someone else was on?
No, Mr. Mayor, just that I'm aware that there are members of the public, I believe, who are interested in testifying tonight.
Thank you. Any comments from Ms. Brodsky? Question?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I do not have any questions per se. I am really grateful for both Ann and Denise's work in helping the Citizen Conservation Board get to this point and bringing this recommendation and resolution. And I think that it is a really great next step for us. And I think getting an action plan addressed over the next year is what really turns our words into action. So I think that's important. One thing that I would just give a comment on, and I would actually ask Mr. Joden what the best route to do this would be, but I, in reviewing this and in not just the conversations in the last month, but really the last year, I think that there is an opportunity for us to be even more ambitious. And there are lots of communities around the country who have already reached not just 50% diversion rates, but 80% diversion rates. And so I would be interested in amending this resolution to 50% diversion by 2030 and 75% by 2040. And I don't know if that would be best as an amendment or just a motion with that included. And I would ask Mr. Joden that, and just very grateful to everyone in the community who's been part of this. I think that, this is a great step that we're taking, and I'm excited about where we can be in 9 and 20 years.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mayor Collins, Commissioner Dean, I think if you wanted to make that as part of your motion, move to approve this resolution and amending section 2 to reflect those numbers and dates, I think that's fine.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commission? Do we have any public comment? Oh, sorry, Commissioner.
Sorry, maybe a question for Mr. Judge on that point. That's the first I'd heard about an impossible amendment to this. I'm just wondering, Mr. Judge, if you have comments on sort of the extent to which those numbers would be achievable.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner O'Loughlin. I think the members of the CCB and myself really appreciate Commissioner Dean's desire for an ambitious target. But balancing against that was just, trying to be very careful to set goals that we think are truly achievable, and something that, we could have a lot of buy-in with the various departments responsible. I would point out that the growth policy does have the words, zero waste as kind of the long-term vision, which is, 90 to 100% diversion. We don't see the current drafting of this resolution as incompatible with that, because it's just kind of the first 2 stepping stones. But I understand Commissioner Dean's desire to move quicker along that path. Perhaps Public Works Director Leland would like to comment, or I believe Waste Superintendent Pete Anderson is on the line as well.
Director Leland or Superintendent Anderson?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner. is that those goals are really pretty high. I think that we also need to take a look at what we are doing overall. We have a very we have a balancing act out there with the solid waste management. We have to also include that the county is a major portion of what the goal is. We have agreements with them. They supply us with the scratch gravel landfill and supplying waste to us. And then we provide tipping fees to take care of the landfill. So we just need to work with our partners to make sure we come up with an appropriate diversion rate that can also make the fiscally responsible, and that we're not undercutting the county, and the county is on board with this. And so that would be just one that we would look at. We've had a 30-year relationship with them. The city has the transfer station, the county has the landfill. So we just have to make sure that the county is out there and is also on board with this, and all the community members that use the transfer station, not just in the city. But we're not against going ahead and having the diversion rates and taking a look at it. One that we are looking at, just to point out, is we're looking at budgeting a master plan, wastewater, or a transfer station master plan and a solid waste master plan with the county. We've had negotiations with the county to look at them funding about 40% of the master plan. And it'll just be a holistic view of how we can start to accomplish the goals for everyone, not just diversion rates, but we'll look at composting. We look at food disposal. We just look at everything holistically, how we can be more efficient with routes and trucks and everything. So we've talked about it, and we take this resolution seriously and have tried to adapt on how we can actually make it in fruition and bring this into part of a bigger part of our whole plan and include more of the community in general.
Thank you,
Director. I can answer a lot more questions and keep going.
Any comments or questions before we move forward?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So a bit has been discussed about a strategic plan and possibly a study. Will that reflect, as Director Leland said, will that reflect the existing system and associated financial impacts on that system? I guess I'm looking for a little bit more direction on what this the study will tell us.
Mayor Collins, may I answer that? This is Ann Brodsky.
Please go ahead, Ms. Brodsky.
We've looked at some strategic plans that have been developed in other communities, for example, Fort Collins, Colorado. We've actually read those plans, and Austin, Texas. What we envision a strategic plan will look like will be a series of options and alternatives to present to the city to reach the goals that are set in the resolution. So, for example, I mean, the most obvious one that comes to mind really is curbside recycling, universal curbside recycling. Is that something that the city wants to undertake? So, for example, the strategic plan would look at, would that be done by the public sector, by the city staff? Would that continue to be done by contracting with private? Would we continue under the current system? The private system has segregates out the different solid waste recyclables. Other cities have either single stream or dual stream curbside recycling. The strategic plan would study the different options available, laying out costs and benefits. It wouldn't be adopting anything. It would be presenting to the city so that in a year from now, the city could start implementing, but it would lay out alternatives for achieving the goals that are here. I mean, other examples, I could give you a handful of other examples of things that could be done to achieve the goals. For example, furniture. There used to be furniture that was set aside at the transfer station that people could come and collect. Apparently there was some criminal activity that was involved with that. So it was abandoned, but could we get back to that? I mean, those are the kinds of things. What kind of partners do we have in the community to work on these things? For example, the the Habitat store is expanding and they want to get involved in this. So the strategic plan would be developing options and alternatives to achieve the objectives, whatever the goals are that the commission adopts, with the time frame, costs and benefits for all the various options available to actually get into implementing. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. My understanding is that as the waste stream, because for example, the transfer station is based on revenue is based on tonnage that comes into it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's accurate. And so as that's reduced, the fixed costs for the solid waste management system, I believe, stay the same. So how does that impact tipping fees, other assessments that are going to impact the general public? So I'm comfortable moving forward if this strategic plan addresses those impacts, because that could be significant, and so that's, I guess I just want to ensure that.
Do you have any comments for that, Ms. Broski or Mr. Judge?
Mayor Collins and Commissioner Logan, my simple response to that is that Section 5 of the resolution recognizes that there will be budget implications. And so it directs that those budget implications will be studied by probably the city staff to evaluate ways to achieve the services, but with, perhaps different ways of assessing the fees to achieve those. So it could result in, like, pay as you throw is a system that's used in many communities that requires people who put more in the landfill to pay more for those services. Mm-hmm. That's one option. I mean, there are many options. We don't have answers here. We would envision that would be studied contemporaneous during that same year that the strategic plan would be developed. And then the budgeting and the strategic plan, would be coming back to the commission in a year before the next budget cycle, with ideas and recommendations for your consideration and implementation.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Broski, go ahead, Commissioner Dean.
Just to add on to what Ann had just mentioned, I'm glad that she mentioned Fort Collins, because that is one community whose strategic plan led to, they were able to get their diversion rates to 50% by 2012. And I do think that, and I know that there is, from what I understand, interest on the county commission of really having a discussion and a look at, being involved in a strategic plan so we really can have system-wide impact. And so I do think, all of those conversations are important. And I think that's all the more reason why it's important we set ambitious goals that guide, what we want our outcome to be, with all of those community partners at the table, evaluating all of the factors that go into it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any other comments? Madam Clerk, did we go through public comments?
Mr. Mayor, we have not called for public comment yet. I do have some hands raised.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission before we move forward?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Logan.
Just a question. I think, so in the resolution, it says, whereas through education implementation of waste reduction measures and community engagement at all levels, the City of Helena can become a regional leader. Maybe from Mr. Leland or members of the CCB or Mr. Judge, any of the above. Describe that educational outreach and how do we reach all segments of the community as this discussion progresses, or as the strategic plan and studying progresses? What's that look like?
Mayor, Commissioner, is to take a look at it. That's why I would roll the strategic plan into a much larger, either overall solid waste management plan, and that's what staff is proposing along with the county, is to be able to have a steering committee that would be a buy-in to be able to come forward. We would look at having, some draft ones that we've been batting around, is having maybe a county commissioner, city commissioner on board, plus a bunch of the public, including the CCB. And so that would be my plan, is to let's look at it bigger, have a holistic view at it, and have a steering committee to bring people together, public meetings to be able to go forward, and then just follow the transportation plan out there that we have done before, that we've had a lot of good stakeholder meetings, the growth policy, and then combine them all to be able to do that outreach to go forward, but have a community steering committee. Not, staff wouldn't be driving this. It would be a truly community driven outlook. And so that's why I propose a little bit bigger one, because it does impact so many aspects of what happens out in the community. I mean, even Broadwater County is going to the community, Lewis and Clark County landfill. If they decide to go private, it would cause the tipping fee to go up $3. So there's a cascading effect with dominoes that I think we need to look at it a little more holistically than just a pinpoint strategic plan to be able to do it. It would all be part of it. And I think all these are great ideas, but just make it to where we can actually get this implemented quicker and have ideas of what we need to do for infrastructure and build this out. So that would be my idea.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
One last question for either Mr. Judge or someone from the CCB. Is what Director Leland said inconsistent with how you see a study or a strategic plan moving forward?
Inconsistent?
Yeah, does Director Leland's vision differ from say the CCB?
Mayor Collins and Commissioner Logan, this is Ann Brodsky, and I'll take a stab at it. From what I'm trying to understand of Mr. Leland's comments, I think they are a little bit different. We have been envisioning, and we proposed to the commission, that an outside contractor, not a city staff, but outside contractor, prepare the strategic plan, working with the larger community. And we lay that out in section 1 of the resolution with all the stakeholders, including everyone that is listed there, and you can imagine the variety, residents and businesses and solid waste and the county and so forth. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought. Here's where I was going with that. The vision that we've discussed has been something akin to the way the growth policy was developed, so that whoever contracted to perform and produce the strategic plan would reach out in a similar way to the way the growth policy reached out with downtown, had opened. Now, I don't know during pandemic that there would have to be, a little bit of a different format. And clearly whoever's preparing the strategic plan has to understand how the system operates, has to work with the current, city providers of these services, has to work as well with and find out how do we work with the outside community. For example, we have contracts currently with third parties that provide solid waste management for the commercial sector in Helena. We have curbside recycling done by the same third party. So all those different players would come together and have input into the development of the strategic plan by the contractor. This obviously can't work without dovetailing, with the solid waste staff, but we see the waste reduction aspect as a standalone piece. And we're asking the city to direct that a strategic plan be done on waste reduction alone, as a standalone measure. Does that answer your question?
Commissioner Logan?
Yes, it does answer my question. I'm going to be hesitant supporting that, and if it's not part of the bigger picture, I guess, because I think that piece of it is important.
Mayor Collins and Commissioner Logan, it has to be part of the bigger picture as well. We understand that, but we are asking that the strategic plan itself be focused on a waste reduction approach. And of course, that has to fit in and dovetail. It can't operate without being part of the solid waste program.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Brodsky. Go ahead, Commissioner Dean.
I'm wondering, so I'm just looking at section 5 of this resolution, and I think, I don't necessarily think the resolution is quite as specific as Ms. Brodsky explained, but I think it's a piece of that larger picture, like she said. But I would just direct everyone's attention to the section 5 that talks about the city manager shall develop budgeting recommendations for the commission's consideration that will enable the city to transition to this significantly decreased waste stream while continuing to provide efficient, convenient, and cost-effective delivery of waste services to Helena City's citizens and businesses. I think that within the budget process, when we start talking about funding a strategic plan or the opportunity to have a year-long discussion per se, I think that it's a year that's in here, June 30th, 2022. I think that maybe during those discussions is where we can get some direction from Manager Harlow-Schulk about, what should we consider within that, the adoption of the budget. And I think that might be the opportunity to figure out how broad does this look in mapping out a route forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, at this time, we'll turn over to the public. Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, first I have an individual listed only as Eric. I would ask that Eric list his full name for the record prior to giving public comment.
Go ahead, Eric, and please fully introduce yourself.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Eric Griffin. I'm the Director of Public Works with Lewis and Clark County. Reuse, recycle is part of the system. I look at this as an analysis of looking at an old wagon wheel. And when you get rid of one spoke, the whole wheel doesn't work. So I strongly support the county. We support a partnership with the City of Helena to go forward with a master plan. And part of the master plan, we look at this because you mess with one part of the spoke of the wheel, the wheel's not going to run smooth. And I just think it's important to set up a master plan into the future for this. I just want a little history for everybody here. We opened the landfill in 1995. The first load of garbage went in 1995. Design for the 4 cells that we have in the landfill for the use under our current license was for 50 years. So that would put us up to the year 2045. Well, with our cooperation and our partnership with the city, with design exceptions, we did an alternative expansion, alternative daily cover, just with operational features that we have added since 1995. We have expanded the life of the landfill, and that is from today, not from back in 1995, for another 103 years. So we are all very, I'm missing the word, very comfortable with what we're doing. And we know that we have to look at this and move forward. But if we look at this separately, it is strictly my opinion, we look at this separately, and you're not going to look at assessments and everything else. We need to look at the whole picture. We need to look at the whole wheel. That is my recommendation. That has been my recommendation to my commissioners. That is my recommendation to the Scottsgravel Landfill Board. You tweak one thing and the whole thing's gets thrown out of whack. And I might also too, we work very hard with our partners in the city to keep our assessments down for everybody. I just want to share kind of a history with assessments. So back in the year FY 2000, our assessments per ton at the landfill was $22.50. So here we are 19 years later, this past year, we're at 26 bucks. We have some of the cheapest rates in the state. And we also have a life as of right now of another 100 and, where was that? 100 and, I think I said 3 years. So I hope, I mean, the resolution is fine, but we have to look at the big picture. We just can't look at part of it. So thank you for your time, and I'm available for questions if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any comments or questions for Eric? Do you have any other public comments, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I do have several other hands raised. Next would be Denise Barber.
Go ahead, Ms. Barber. You have the floor.
Sorry, I was muted on my own system. Members of the Commissioner and Mayor, my name is Denise Barber. Earlier spoke with you as a member of HCC, and now I'm the HCC rep on the Conservation Board. I guess I'm a little confused. And honestly, in all of the months of these conversations, the big elephant in the room has been, if we reduce our waste stream, the city, county is going to lose money because it relies on money through the fees to pay for the operations. And that is now something that in 2021, we need to address, and we can no longer operate with that premise that we need garbage in order to pay for our system. Although we do, right? So, I mean, it's a catch-22. It's not going to be easy, but I think we are up for the challenge of figuring that out, of working together to figure out to be responsible in reducing our waste stream. The answer is not, let's continue to throw as much as we can away because we make money doing so. We need to change our operations and our mindset around that. And that's what this resolution is designed to do. So the strategic plan that we would, am I muted?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. The strategic plan that we're advocating for, while it would be separate from the development of the master plan, it would not be in contrast with it. It would be a component of all the various work that's going to be happening in how to manage our waste stream. So and that is exactly why we tried to work very closely with Public Works Department in developing this resolution, but we would like the strategic plan to focus on the waste reduction component. It is a spoke in the wheel, but we're not taking that spoke out. We're just focusing in on that. So I really strongly support, and I hope that the commission will strongly support the development of a strategic plan to look at waste reduction. And I'll just say one more thing, which is, the onus is not entirely on the city public work department to reach these goals, whether it's 50% by 2040 or 75%, by 2030. The onus is largely on our community, us as individuals, as companies, as schools, all of the various stakeholders in this community, and we need to reach out to them. And I appreciate Commissioner Logan's question, which is what does that look like? And the answer is we don't have that mapped out yet, but we are committed to making that happen over the next, this is a long range plan. And we're committed to working with the community and figuring out how to get everybody to reduce their waste. So anyway, I guess that's all I have to say at this point. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Next, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have Pete Anderson with his hand raised.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I was just raised my hand to answer Commissioner Logan's question as far as how the current system is funded. Solid waste is a very complex system, as Director Leland pointed out. As far as our partnership with Lewis and Clark County, we manage the transfer station, all residents haul there, and then we truck the waste to the landfill. And everything's funded through tipping. So there's 8 different budget components to this system. And residential solid waste collects cans from city residents. It comes into the transfer station. Those trucks are weighed. They pay a tipping fee to the transfer station fund. Commercial solid waste picks up businesses. Those trucks come into the transfer station. They're weighed. They pay a tipping fee to the transfer station. Scratch gravel residents from Lewis and Clark County, as well as Tri-County Disposal, haul into the transfer station. They pay their weight and they pay a tipping fee. In return, the transfer station hauls the waste to the county, pays a tipping fee to Lewis and Clark County landfill, and the money stays in the system. And that's how we fund and manage solid waste. And we continue to try to expand waste diversion and recycling within this system. As Director Leland pointed out, the system's been in place and the partnership is 30 years. The master plan component that we're talking about is to look at how we can increase diversion, how we can reduce waste, increase our composting, increase reuse, and try to direct folks to be take better thought in how they dispose of waste. But that's what I had to say, and I wanted to answer Commissioner Logan's question.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, next hand raised is Mark Judeman.
Go ahead, Mr. Judeman.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am a member of the Citizen Conservation Committee or Board, not a member, however, of the Waste Committee, and I just want to commend that committee for their work in both public engagement and engaging with solid waste on this matter. I think 2 important aspects of the resolution that they put forward are the 5-year review of progress towards the goals so that there can be a course adjustment as necessary, and also the recognition in the resolution that there are going to be financial impacts and trying to figure out a good way to manage those. Anyway, the committee, the Waste Committee has done a wonderful job of public engagement so far, and I expect that they will continue that in this future work. And I do urge that the commission approve this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Judeman. Madam Clerk.
The last hand I have raised, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, is Chelsea Peschel.
You have the floor, Chelsea. Chelsea? Madam Clerk, we're not hearing from Chelsea.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, if Ms. Peschel or Chelsea has public comment they'd like to enter in the written form due to technical difficulties, I'd remind everyone that they can enter that in the Q&A.
Thank you. So,
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm happy to make the motion. I just have one other question for, I'm going to guess, Public Works. I'm curious, what happens to the assessment for people who don't use all of their allotted tonnage? And I guess also, do we know the number that is the leftover tonnage for those who haven't used it?
Wow. That's it. What was your question going to?
Looks like Mr. Leland might be able to take it.
Mayor, Commissioners, I probably can take a stab at it, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Pete Anderson. He probably can answer it a little bit more succinct than I can, so I'll let him answer that.
Mayor, Commissioners, as far as Commissioner Dean's question goes, as far as tonnage allotment, for city residential, city assessments are based on once a week collection with a permit to use the transfer station for bulky waste and an allotment of 3,000 pounds. So it varies on the percentage of folks that actually have bulky waste to dispose of. For Lewis and Clark County, the scratch gravel district, they don't have collections, so they have a permit for 3,000 pounds. The folks that live in scratch gravel that want collection, they pay Tri-County Disposal to pick up their waste, and then Lewis and Clark County pays the tipping for Tri-County to haul it to the transfer station, so the City of Helena gets revenue from that tipping. But I do not have those numbers on how many permit holders. I can tell you that there's roughly 15,000 scratch gravel permit holders and 11,000 city permit holders. Those are approximate numbers.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And Mayor, just let me know when you want me to make a motion.
You bet. Do we have any final comments from the commission? Okay, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move to adopt a resolution establishing solid waste reduction goals and amending section 2 to 50% diversion by 2030 and 75% diversion by 2040, and a method to achieve those goals for the City of Helena.
Would you repeat that, please?
First part is move to adopt a resolution establishing solid waste reduction goals and amending section 2 to 50% diversion by 2030 and 75% diversion by 2040, and a method to achieve those goals for the City of Helena.
Oh.
Mayor, I'll second that. I'm just trying to pull up, what does the current?
So I was reading what the recommended was and then added the amend section 2 as noted by Mr. Joden.
The current is
3550, and you're suggesting
40 and 35 by 30. And she is switching it to
50 and 70.
50% by 35 and 75%. Am I right? Yeah, by 40. And I remember the professionals were saying how ambitious that was. It's going to be a tough one to achieve, as per what we heard.
Well, I will add in there, we do have a 5-year revisit. So I'd rather shoot too high than too low.
No, just rather shoot straight. Don't shoot high, don't shoot low, shoot straight. That's the idea of shooting. Shoot the target. Anyway, it's you've given the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Madam Clerk, it's been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Nay.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
No.
The motion stands at 2-2.
So Mayor, with that motion fail, I will go ahead and move the current resolution as it stands, move to adopt a resolution establishing solid waste reduction goals and a method to achieve those goals for the City of Helena as proposed in the resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Nay.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 3-1.
Thank you. Public hearings. Consider an ordinance amending the city regulation concerning the parking of vehicles, trailers, recreational vehicles, boats on city street during winter by amending Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 8, Snow and Ice of the Helena City Code. Director Konopky.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Director Konopky, our Director of Transportation Systems. This is the final reading of the revisions that we discussed previously. These revisions reflect changes in the snow routes along 6th Avenue and to permit construction trailers and other minor revisions. We did offer a staff amendment that would also allow the city manager to evaluate short-term requests on a case-by-case basis for extraordinary circumstances. This may include moving trucks or short-term parking circumstances. The public hearing was noticed on February 13th and 19th. The disadvantage of this the city code would not reflect the current situation, and the recommendation is to approve the final reading with the staff amendment. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Any comments or questions from the commission? None? Any public comments on this topic? Okay. Consider an ordinance amending. So, Mr. Jordan, at this point, do we go for a vote?
Yes, Mayor Collins.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor. Go for it.
Thank you. I'll give it a try. I'd recommend a motion to approve final passage of an ordinance amending the city's regulations concerning parking of vehicles, trailers, recreational vehicles, and boats on city streets during winter by amending Title 7, Public Ways and Property, Chapter 8, Snow and Ice of the Helena City Code.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean,
Here, excuse me, aye.
Commissioner Logan,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Madam Manager, we'll come back to you. 11 Bravo.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. I wanted to make sure and reflect in the minutes what was shared to you today, which is the Be Heard Helena strategic plan information and the input received to date since starting Be Heard as a new platform within the city. It is new. If we did not have this platform, we would not have received continuous input over this last several weeks since your commission retreat, which offered up input by the community. And what we're recommending today is adoption of, for the purposes of the fiscal year 22 budget, the strategic outcomes as presented, and as well as the key indicators, the key priorities, excuse me, within each of those strategic planning objectives. So again, as a revision, just to revisit the strategic planning objectives were to address, promote healthy and sustainable growth. This is the first. The second is improve neighborhood livability. And the third was to promote a safe community. And within each of those sections, the commission arrived at consensus on key priorities, which included several areas, most notably those items as shared within the Be Heard Helena. Input came in from our, also from our Citizens Council, and was also shared to you all tonight as well. So based on the input and the increase of input, we have 127 aware participants in the Be Heard Helena, 83 informed participants, that would be those who've actually made it through the sections and provided input, and then 35 who completed actual survey responses. So with that, we have what we believe is sufficient input to suggest that beyond what we have had in the past, which are typically public meetings and email inserts, as well responses to email, more input than we've received on other opportunities, and will continue to receive on the Be Heard Helena throughout our budgeting process. Again, this aligns the budget. And as we move to the budgeting process, the next step will include a revisit of our, it's called the Balancing Act tool. And within that tool, we will be discussing with the community and sharing how, in fact, they could change or modify their the budget for the city. So the first shot out after, if you do adopt these as your priority outcomes, as well your key priorities, strategic outcomes and key priorities. Sorry, there the jargon here caught me tonight, a little late too. If you do adopt them tonight, we'll move straight to the strategic plan next step, which is the integration of our current fiscal year budget, and then additional items as identified as potential increases. Some of those, and we'll make sure to share those before it goes live, the calculator itself, as to what increases could look like in response to your key priorities. For example, just as was shared tonight, $60,000, for example, towards recycling strategic plan or solid waste strategic plan. Those kinds of inputs would be offered into the FY21 budget. Then we would close that portion, provide to you the next set of input from Be Heard, and then we would move to the FY22 budget. So all along the way, we're getting input from the community, not only on your strategic planning objectives, but where in fact to not only start funding things, but the actual proposal itself. So what normally would take place is that the city would provide to you all our proposed budget. We would go through working sessions, and the comments and input from the community would be limited to public meetings such as this, as well as those meetings where we adopt on the two meetings our budget. So we're increasing not only input over an additional 4 months, but also providing opportunity to comment online at the convenience of our residents when they're and citizens when they're able to. So with that, Mayor, I will answer any questions that you all might have on the information is provided and share any other comments. In the last administrative meeting, I will say that I had shared to you all the level of effort put into communicating out and outreaching to our community on the availability of the Be Heard Helena tool and the various methods that we have gone to and will continue to utilize moving forward. One of them was the use of a direct mail email from me. I want to let you know that did not happen. I did not have the all the email addresses that I needed to have in order to hit not only the nonprofits, but also the churches. Now that I have that, I will continue to and start sending one-on-one. But just to remind you all, we did the coffee break on the radio as well. KTDH, we completed the retreat where we offered up input. We've had 2 administrative meetings on your strategic objectives. We have Be Heard Helena. We have Be Heard Helena available on the app on the front page. We've had interviews with the independent record and interview with the independent record. We've completed utility bill inserts, provided update at Hometown Helena at the P1S meeting, as well a chamber meeting, and the HCC, the Citizens Council also was shared out too. I'll offer up an opportunity for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, first, I'm excited about, having another venue for people to provide comment that is, I guess, in the education community, we call it more scaffolded. But I'm curious too, I know this is kind of a benchmark for us as we move through this process. When do you anticipate we open this back up again to the community for more input once we that includes some of those budget items?
We will be coming to the the March 17th administrative meeting with the budget calculator, and also the March 3rd meeting with the budget calculator. So each time we meet with you, we'll be over the next several months having a conversation. So that first conversation on March 3rd will be showcasing to you the budget calculator that shows the current fiscal year budget and questions that we'll be asking the community within that budget to move dollars around, also to get their input. Then on the 17th of March, we'll come back, provide to you that input, and then we'll start utilizing and working with our finance director, Mrs. Danielson, to include the recommended and current proposed budget for FY22 that we anticipate. So we'll want to make sure to get that input from the community on FY21 increases, then integrate those into the ask to the commission afterwards. So we should be seeing it, and you'll see it for the next 2 admin meetings.
Great, thank you.
Do you have any other comments or questions for the city manager.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
just a quick comment of actually thanks to the manager and all of staff involved that that made this happen. I think this is a pretty big milestone for the manager. As I look back over, back to August when we were looking at trying to hire a new manager, and I think she this is a part of her doing what she said she was going to do, and I think that's pretty cool, and really appreciate the effort that has gone into this, and the utility of the Be Heard Helena, and hopefully we can improve on that over time. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Do we have any public comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have received no written comment on this item. I have no hands raised. I would make a note that there was written comment submitted to the Q&A, which will be recorded on the last item from Chelsea Pashaw.
Thank you. Okay, so what are we doing? We adopting this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion, Mayor.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
So I'll move to adopt the strategic outcomes and priorities within them for the FY 2022 budget based upon input from the community as summarized within the real-time results of the Be Heard Helena report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Dean.
Aye.
Commissioner Logan.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Aye.
Mayor Collins.
Aye.
The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. At this time, is there anybody from the public wishes to address the commission? Madam Clerk, do we have any raised hands?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have no raised hands and I've received no further written public comment.
Any final comments from the commission? Well, I thank you all for participating in this City Commission meeting. At this time, this meeting is adjourned.